So for anyone out there that is interested, this is my MGB. I'll just talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done, some of the things it's got. One of the interesting things is I don't know how interesting it is, but it's got 13-inch wheels with Formula Atlantic tires. The cars that they run are so light that it's a good compound for autocross. And if you look in there, that's actually very close to stock MG brakes. We just put uprated compound in it, but really heavy brakes wouldn't heat up enough to work effectively. We've replaced the studs. There's an interesting thing with the knurl, where the knurl for a late model Corvette or Camaro is the same size, so we just replaced them because they're getting old and it's nice to have the open lug nuts so you can see. Up here is where the air cleaner kind of pokes through. It's sporting a 4.3 Chevy. It's kind of nice because it's got a really broad power band. It's a little bit lighter than the V8, and it's just unstressed. I mean, it's mostly stock, and I'll show you that in a minute. This is what all the wiring and the dash looks like. You see that the steering wheel is mounted backwards. We put a gearbox in here to double the steering, and then down here is the electronic steering control unit, and we had to add some length, so the easiest solution was to turn the steering wheel around, and that is a really nice place for it. One of the local club guys talked about it. But another cool thing is we've got a knob right there that I can adjust how much steering you have. The wiring is pretty simple. What I've got is a push button to run the solenoid to start it, ignition, fuel pump, and then all the electrical. And the nice thing about having all the electrical is I can push the car around without running and have power steering, which is kind of a nice convenient feature. And then I have the fan with a light so that you can tell it's working, and the minimal amount of gauges to know that something is about to blow up. But it's really low stress powertrain, so it runs nice and easy. It makes good torque between 2,000 and 4,500 RPM. It doesn't really have to work that hard, and most of the power rate now is going down to the pavement. So in the future, I've found an L67 Buick 3.8 that I'm going to put in it. If you ever do an electronic steering conversion, you'll notice the giant solenoid that I'd run and the massive wires that go to them. They use a lot of juice. Down here is a custom made shifter. We just have a new venture Chevy S10. It works fine. We run it in second and third. First would be a super granny gear, and then here are the racing seats. They're the only ones that were narrow enough to fit. It made buying them really easy. The kill switch, to run these tires, I have to run kill switch and some form of scatter shield or really thick plating, and you can see the plating down there just in case the clutch or flywheel ever exploded. But most of that actually sits ahead of where the feet are, so even without it we'd be really safe, and it's a really low stressed powertrain. You come back, we've got the batteries in its stock place. Got the roll bar that we built, my rear spoiler, and I built this so that I can open and close the trunk with removing a few bolts. The flares are something my dad made to fit these 10-inch wide tires underneath it. It's a lot of tire for the size of the vehicle, but it really made a difference in the handling. I was running takeoffs from Miata Spec series, which were about 205, and I think I gained about 3 inches of rubber on each tire. And going down to a 13-inch wheel, I actually lost about a pound on each wheel of rotating mass. Here's a kind of a different side view of the driver's compartment. Pedals and all that are pretty much stock, but we do have a Chevy master cylinder for the transmission. It was easy enough just to modify that to fit. The only unfortunate thing, and this was kind of a hack thing, I hate doing it, but you want to be able to fill your reservoir, and there just wasn't a way to have gravity feed there. Come around to the front, I see that wonderful rock guard. I actually like that look. I feel like it's probably perhaps offensive to some MG people, but I think it looks cool. The front splitter and air dam that we made. It's just a piece of aluminum that we bent to fit. I need to put some expanded metal on the bottom, and then my dad made some custom mounts to basically to hook it up for going on the trailer. Most of everything that doesn't make it go faster has been cut out. I'll show you what the engine compartment looks like. It's pretty simple. There you see it's got the stock master cylinder. We did put a proportioning valve in it. We had some brake bias issues for a little while. It's still not ideal, I think. And then if you look, we've got kind of a wishbone that we built so that we could mount the front coilovers. We got rid of the Armstrong dampers. And then that kind of, well, you have these cascading problems whenever you do something. We wanted a high point on the engine, so we put one of those higher filler knobs there, and then did it, and then found out that it's not the recommended way to do it. We also ran into a problem because I thought, hey, if I get a Chevy short water pump and put it on the 4.3, it will bolt up, and then I move my weight backward a couple inches. Well, if you do that, your alternator doesn't fit. So the alternator is actually mounted to the car and going backwards, but it works out because the engine's solid mounted anyway. When I put a Buick 3.8 in, I'll probably change that up. The radiator is just the cheapest that I could find on eBay for a Mustang, like the first model. They're narrow enough, but you've got to really tilt them to make them work. And you can see kind of all the bracing up front to make the front end stiff. We're running a lot of circle track parts. Like the coilovers are, something you get out of Speedway motors. The rear sway bar is a NASCAR style unit with all the splines and the adjustable links. We took some of that plastic that they sell for that and used that to force the air to go through the radiator. It probably dropped about 20 degrees once we put it in. It was kind of always on the verge of overheating before, and now it just runs about 190, 195, right where I think Chevy intended. It's just got a Edelbrock Performer intake. The only real reason for that was to put a carb, and then you see the little headers. My dad fabbed them up, and we bought some Norwalk Jeep conversion ones, and then made them fit our application by kind of tilting them and making them work for what we wanted. Other weird things, there's a lot of handiwork that we've done ourselves. Let's see, I had one just kind of cross my mind, but it's gone now. Trying to think of other things about this. We do run a 3/4 inch solid MG sway bar. Because of our application, we still had to modify it to make it work, but let's see if we can get any kind of a good view underneath the splitter. There's the sway bar, and we've got these links that come down. We had to shorten those because we've dropped it a lot. We revised a lot of the geometry and made wishbones out of the stock bottom ones by boxing them in. It's held up pretty well so far. By pretty well, I mean we haven't had any problems with it. Let's go around to the back, and the last thing I'll kind of show you is what the trunk looks like. We changed the front and rear spring rates quite a bit. I'm running about a 500 on the front, but it's got a better advantage because the wheel rate is higher than it would be with the stock springs because they're closer to the wheel where they attach. That was one of the things. If you ever want to do something that's kind of off the map as far as chassis design, there's a software company called Performance Trends, another circle track thing, but they do some really cool, you can figure out what the roll rate is on both ends with a bunch of measurements, and then they can predict what kind of springs you need to have balanced handling. You can also see the harness system for safety, and I mean, when you run race seats, you really want to be as attached to the car as you can be. I put wing nuts on the back here because you have to open the trunk to fill it anyway. You'll notice there's duct tape because they don't want you to have an airfoil in any sort of way in this class, so you have to make it so the air cannot move above and below, and the easiest way to seal that off is just to use duct tape. There's a lot of pragmaticism. I mean, it's still got the stock rear end, but we put a limited slip in it this winter because we were struggling to get the power down. And it's like 3J drivetrain. It's really cool. It's a 1.5 way, so it's fully locked when you're really on it. When you're coasting into a corner, there's like a slight lock, which really helps the car going nice and stable and straight. But it rotates through the corner really easily, almost like an open diff. So it's kind of like the best of all worlds. A lot of people go for a two-way or a one-way, but it's got a lot of versatility and it's not overly aggressive. So you can choose to steer it with the throttle, or you can choose not to. This is the trunk. You'll see the NASCAR style bar. We've got Heims on the top and 3 different links. And then we have the fuel tank. There's just enough room to fill it. The old fuel tank was starting to give way because it was made by MG. And yeah, it was leaking. So why not just put a smaller fuel cell in that weighs less and is safer and doesn't leak? We had to put covers in just to make sure that nothing can pass. You have to have a solid bulkhead, and not a whole lot of people look in there, but the bar has about 20-pound increments, and I use that performance software or performance trend software to set it up, and it was so close I haven't had to move it. But yeah, if you have any questions or anything, let me know. But we also did door bars in it because race car, and because they're really cool, and the car sits so low anyway that using the doors is just kind of more of a hassle. And it has the cool tack mounted up there because the 16-year-old in me would be so happy with that and the air cleaner arrangement. They just look really fast and are incredibly tacky and stupid, and I love them. But yeah, that's kind of the car in a nutshell. It's getting better, and pretty soon I plan to put well, not too soon, we've got a kid on the way, but in the next couple of years I plan on getting a Buick 3.8 that's supercharged, ready to run in it. and then I'll be able to dial in some serious power to the rear wheels. But right now I'm just learning how to drive it. So have a good one.